Want to know how masterpieces are created? Do you think great writers simply sit down at a desk, come up with a plot, and start writing? Oh, no. They all do it completely differently. Their approaches are so different, it's almost as if they had entirely different professions. Today, we're talking about the different types of writers. The first two have become almost the classic approaches. Most modern authors fall into one of them, but the next three might completely blow your mind. These writers use some truly outrageous ways of creating books. Architects and gardeners. This now classic distinction was popularized by writer George R. R. Martin. An architect writer starts with a detailed blueprint, as if designing a house before building it. They know exactly how many rooms there will be, what the roof will look like, and where every wire will run. Every single brick matters. A gardener writer is the complete opposite. They begin by digging a small hole and planting a seed, an idea, or a character. Then they nurture it and let the story grow on its own. They know what they've planted, but what the plant ultimately becomes depends on the wind, the weather, and how much care it receives. Two approaches, two extremes. Great architects: Vladimir Nabokov, Agatha Christie, Umberto Eco, J.R.R. Tolkien, J.K. Rowling, J.D. Salinger. Great gardeners: Leo Tolstoy, Mikhail Bulgakov, Ray Bradbury, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Stephen King. No one is purely an architect or a gardener in terms of a writer, but many writers tend to one side or the other. George R. R. Martin himself has said that he is 90% gardener. These are the two best-known types of writers. But this is only the beginning. The next three types are guaranteed to surprise you. Their approaches to writing are so radically different that it's almost impossible to believe they gave birth to genuine literary masterpieces. Cut-up writers. Imagine this. You take an existing text, cut it into separate words and phrases, and then rearrange them into a completely random order. This is not the experiment of a madman. It is William S. Burroughs' cut-up technique. Back in the 1920s, Dadaist poet Tristan Tzara suggested creating poetry through chance, cutting words out of newspapers, putting them into a bag, and pulling them out one by one. Tzara believed that poetry belonged to everyone, and that randomness was the true engine of creation. 40 years later, William S. Burroughs and the artist Brian Gysin developed this idea further and transformed it into a full-fledged literary method. This was the technique behind some of Burroughs' iconic novels, including Naked Lunch and The Soft Machine. Burroughs believed that this was not just a literary technique. It was a way to hack language itself, and even reality. When you cut into the present, the future leaks out. The method gained widespread influence. Argentine writer Julio Cortázar turned cut-up into a game. In his 1963 novel Hopscotch, he allowed readers to choose their own path through the chapters. The ideas of cut-up went far beyond literature. Similar techniques appeared in film, visual art, and music. David Bowie, Radiohead, Kurt Cobain, and an entire culture of sampling, all of it can be traced back to scissors and chance. Oulipo Writers. Imagine being asked to write an entire novel, but you are not allowed to use one specific letter, or every chapter must follow a strict mathematical pattern. For most writers, limitations are an obstacle. But for this type of author, constraints become the main source of creativity. The most famous group of such literary experimenters is Oulipo, short for Ouvroir de littérature potentielle, or Workshop of Potential Literature. It was founded in 1960 by mathematician François Le Lyonnais and writer Raymond Queneau. Their idea was paradoxical. Strict rules do not limit imagination. They force writers to discover completely new ways of creating. They systematically explored literary constraints, lipograms, acrostics, palindromes, and other formal experiments. Queneau described Oulipo writers as rats who construct the labyrinth from which they plan to escape. Gadsby by Ernest Vincent Wright, 1939. The novel appeared before Oulipo existed, but it became one of the most famous examples of a lipogram. The entire book, more than 50,000 words long, contains not a single letter E, the most common letter in the English language. The same principle was later used in Georges Perec's novel A Void, published in 1969. Exercises in Style by Raymond Queneau, 1947. A simple, everyday story about a bus ride is told in 99 different styles. Queneau shows how endless variations in form can completely transform the same text. 100,000 Billion Poems by Raymond Queneau, 1961. This book consists of 10 sonnets whose individual lines can be combined with each other. In theory, the reader can create 100 trillion different poems. The Conversions by Harry Matthews, 1962. The author, an American member of Oulipo, uses the S+7 method, replacing every noun with the seventh noun that follows it in the dictionary. Life, a User's Manual by Georges Perec, 1978. And perhaps the most famous example is Georges Perec's novel, Life, a User's Manual. It is built like a giant puzzle, where every chapter follows a complex system of rules, and the order of the narrative is determined by the movement of a knight across a chessboard. Automatic writers. Imagine this. You are not allowed to stop, edit your text, or even think about what you're writing. That's right. You have to write down a thought before you even have time to become aware of it. No conscious control, no inner editor. This approach became known as automatic writing. It was pioneered by the French surrealists André Breton and Philippe Soupault. In 1919, they published The Magnetic Fields, widely regarded as the first major work created using automatic writing. The idea was inspired by Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis and his concept of the unconscious. The surrealists believed that the unconscious knows more than the conscious mind. In their view, the true source of creativity was not logic, but the free flow of thought. Surrealism, pure psychic automatism, by which it is intended to express the real process of thought. It is the dictation of thought, free from any control by the reason and of any aesthetic or moral preoccupation. Breton's practical instruction for automatic writing. Write quickly without any preconceived subject, fast enough so that you will not remember what you're writing and not be tempted to reread it. Breton called such writers modest recording apparatuses. Among them were Louis Aragon, Paul Éluard, and Robert Denos. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you enjoyed it.